Working Cows Podcast, episode 172.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. This is Clay Conry, host of the Working Cows Podcast, powered by the Global Ag Network, here with another episode, and it's a momentous occasion. First episode with a live studio audience. First episode joined by the greatest guest in the history of the Working Cows Podcast. She was great before she agreed to put up with me for life, but that added to her greatness. The ability to put up with me for the rest of your life is a pretty momentous commitment, and I really appreciate her joining me today. Miranda, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows Podcast.
My pleasure.
So yeah, we had our live studio audience here at our kitchen table, and we are getting ready to head out to Ranching for Profit on tomorrow. We're recording this on Saturday. We're heading out tomorrow morning to get there to Cheyenne, Wyoming in the afternoon. And I just thought it would be interesting to kind of record some of our reactions to the Ranching for Profit experience as we are going through it for the first time and going through it together. I'm really excited about that opportunity. But I also wanted to talk about it from a perspective of kind of real talk, what it takes to get out of town for a week and kind of own that from a real perspective, and so talk to you a little bit about what your last few weeks, or as you said this morning, since Christmas has looked like as we've prepared to be gone for 7 days.
Yeah, so I usually cook for 6 people, and thinking ahead, trying to get things ready for Grandma to come stay, I was doubling recipes over Christmas vacation because it was my first real break from school, as well as we've been homeschooling this year for the first time. So that was a little extra chaos too, getting lesson plans ready. I hadn't even been outside for a few days in a row there, just trying to get things in the house wrangled and leave it well for grandparents to come, which we're so thankful. Both sets of our folks are always very willing to pitch in and help with kids, which without that, we both would not be going. So super, super thankful for that. And yeah, just trying to get the house situated for someone else to come live in it for a week. Kind of wild.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you taking the time to get things ready and to make it happen. We wouldn't be able to get out of town like this if we weren't both willing to put in some extra effort on both ends of that time. So there's definitely some challenges. What are some of the challenges that you've been working through? You said lesson plans and meal preparation. What else have you been trying to get prepared so that the people who are taking our places in the various roles that we fill are prepared? And you will also have live beagle noises in the background throughout this episode. We're recording, as I said, at our kitchen table. There is absolutely no audio treatment in this room, so you're going to have some echoes. You're going to have some whirring and some buzzing and some hissing and some background noise that you wouldn't usually have, but that's just what we're going to deal with today. So anyways, what are some of the things you've been doing to prepare other people to fill in for you as you are vacating your roles as Sunday school teacher, mother, homeschool teacher, whatever else? Release time. We do release time at the church, those two.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have other people willing to help out, but you don't realize maybe what you're responsible for until you start dishing out your job titles. Sunday school's covered for tomorrow, and middle of the week class is covered. Not too terribly much else besides that. Grandma's going to carry the load of work for school, and I'm sure Grandpa will help. And we're kind of in a sweet spot with chores, yard chores that I would usually do at the barn. Old horse will be fed twice a day, some grain, and we just plopped bales in today, which we usually don't do. We usually pitch hay, but we're just trying to lighten the load for daily chores too. And also we have weaned our lambs. They're in a separate pen right now, so they'll have to be fed hay. And our really nice thing right now is we're on to our bale grazing. So Clay and I just moved fence this morning so they won't have to feed cows or the ewes at all. They'll just have to make sure they stay in their electric fence, which they haven't dared to push their luck with yet. So,
yeah, we've been having good luck with that so far. We've got 3 strands of hot wire running down one side, and then 2 of the other sides are covered by electric net fencing for the sheep, and then the back side of it is the barnyard, which has 4 strands of barbed wire around most of it, some woven wire, some panels, but they can get back to water there. So that's been a good experiment. One of the real, I guess, highlights of our year has been being able to see a lot of the things that we have been learning through this journey that started with the High Plains Ranch Practicum and then continued with Working Cows podcast. The things we've been learning there have been things we've been able to implement here on this piece of land that we have been entrusted with. And so we did some daily and every other day moves this spring and summer, and we did some swath grazing this fall and winter, and then we're on to bale grazing, recording this in January, the middle of January of 2021. So on to some bale grazing, and that bale grazing is set up to last us until May. We are breeding or bred. We've got our cows bred to calve at the end of May, and we've got our sheep being bred currently to lamb in the first part of May through the end of May. So that's kind of the things that we have set up and going on here, and the bale grazing is the current events and some of the things that we are experiencing. So you mentioned doubling recipes. What else did you do to lighten the load as far as the house is concerned for your mom and your dad?
Everyone got a haircut yesterday, including our daughter. And so the hairbrushing trauma of the day should be minimalized. Not a whole lot else besides that. I feel like school and cooking are my major things I do every day. So that's a chore.
Yeah. No, and you do it well. You manage it all very well. And I've been very thankful to have that opportunity to have you at home with our children at this time, and been a learning experience, but I think a good experience overall, and I think one that we will continue to pursue. Our oldest is going to be, he's in 6th grade right now. He'll be in 7th grade next year. So we've got a couple of years to decide what we're going to do for high school, but definitely something that we'll continue doing for the foreseeable future with all ages, and we'll see where high school takes us.
Yes, we have really nice country school, but it's about 25 miles away from home as we sit. The closest high school is going to be about 100 miles away. So high school is going to be a big decision, but thankfully we do have a couple of years to think that through. Yeah, coming sooner than we're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody says, enjoy it. They're going to grow up fast. It's going to be fast. So yeah, it definitely does happen very, very quickly, and we're enjoying it as much as we can, trying to enjoy it as much as we can. Yeah, definitely something that we are that we're trying to figure out every day, trying to do better at enjoying that, and not getting overwhelmed with the day-to-day to the point that we miss the forest for the trees, so to speak, of the day-to-day getting you overwhelmed, and you're missing the moments where they're growing up and where they're progressing and those kinds of things.
Yeah, homeschool has been humbling for myself, but I do appreciate the fact that they can work at their own pace a little bit better, and we're just still learning. It's a learning curve, but I think they also have had new opportunities helping with chores and things too, because we are done usually by 2 or so in the afternoon. So they are getting to plug into ranch work a little bit more too. So win-win.
Yeah. That has been a benefit for sure, of having the kids involved, being able to have the kids involved, and something that we've really been enjoying that opportunity. And I think that part of that is the way that we do it, the way that we're ranching right now, with very little equipment, very little heavy equipment operation to feed them. Right now, the extent of our equipment is a 2007 Dodge Ram 3/4 ton pickup with a bale bed, and I'm sure the bale bed is at least as old as the pickup is. And that's it. That's all we've got for equipment. We've got a 4-wheeler, 1999 Yamaha Big Bear 350 that Miranda paid for half of it when she was, I think, started making payments when you were in like 7th or 8th grade.
Yes, when I got my first job.
Cleaning houses?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so very, very, very low. But I mean, honestly, we've got right now we've got 3 cows, 3 bred heifers, and 25 ewes, and then about 35 or 30 lambs here right now. So not a big deal, but we did bring in 70 head or so, or 40 some head of outside cattle plus our own. We had about 70 cattle running daily, every other day moves through the summer. And I think that, again, when you're using step-in posts and poly wire and reels, the kids, even on down to the youngest one, Glover, he is 6 years old, just turned 6 years old, and he was able to help with some of that throughout the summer. So I think that that's one of the benefits of ranching the way that we're doing it currently, is that even kids his age get to jump in and help.
It's also something we try to balance. I was thinking about this because Monday I was talking on the radio and I didn't convey it very well, but sometimes all it takes is a little incentive there too, like come help mom and dad move fence for 20 minutes and then we'll let you stay down in the creek, which they love to explore and play. Just our only trees pretty much on the property, but guaranteed creek playtime in the summer is a pretty easy snag for them to get to come along. But to try to balance some work with fun and just make it more enjoyable for everyone. Because we have 2 that would gladly work all day alongside of you, and the other 2 take a little bribing now and then. But if there's some incentive there at the end of the work, it's better for everyone.
Yeah, makes them enjoy it a little bit more. So what were some of the highlights? I know this was 3 years ago. What were some of the highlights of the High Plains Ranch Practicum? What were some of the things that have continued to prove themselves to be true in your experience and the day-to-day? So what were some of those things that you've seen come back over and over again, thinking, that was a useful tidbit that we learned in school?
So I'm not much into the bookwork end of things, quite honestly. Made me a terrible small business owner. But the things that I guess I latch onto are the people discussions, and just they had this special speakers in that talked about people's different personalities and how you're always going to pick up on those no matter where you work at, but maybe especially more so when you're working with family or in a family operation. how to balance those, how to realize what kind of personality you are, and how to plug yourself in where you best fit, what things are going to stretch you. I also kind of nerded out on the day where they did cattle scoring or body condition scoring. That was a very practical thing that I must be a visual learner because I latched onto that, and it's been something I've tried to pay attention to in our own herd. It's tricky. They always say bring a neighbor along for a fresh set of eyes, and there is no doubt in my mind that that is necessary, because when you look at your own every day, you miss things. So I was trying to remember how long ago that was. I couldn't remember if it was 3 or 4 years ago, but I was thinking I should go back and look through my notes to try to refresh my mind and kind of get ready to drink from the fire hose, as it were, coming up. So
yeah, we're closer to 4 years ago now to the start of it. I think the first session was in June of 2017, and so we're January of 2021. The last session of it was in November of 2017. So yeah, we're pretty close to the 4-year mark of the start of our journey in the High Plains Ranch Practicum. So what are some of the things that you're looking forward to? So let's talk first about the difference in our personalities, and part of the stress of getting out of town being the difference in our personalities and how we process and think about opportunities like this.
Sure. I wanted to have a mini panic attack last night thinking about having to sit with complete strangers for the whole week, and I really had to die to myself and tell myself I would be okay. Just being around people constantly is going to wear me out, where I think it fills Clay's cup up, it drains mine. So it's kind of a mental hurdle that I have to tell myself it's a good thing, and it'll make me grow, and I will enjoy myself. It'll wear me out. So I don't know what other personality differences.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about for sure. I heard one time my favorite engineers joke, and I don't know how many engineers we have listening to the Working Cows podcast, but Brian, if you're listening to this, you're one of them, I guess. But and you don't fit this mold, Brian. But I know other people who do. How you tell when you walk into a room full of engineers. You know how you tell which engineer is the extrovert. It's the one staring at the other guy's shoes, and that is kind of my favorite introvert extrovert joke. But my wife, who is wired as an introvert, you would never know it. In a public setting, she does such a good job of, as she said, dying to herself and getting outside of her box and really putting forth the effort and being somebody that people want to interact with, people want to be around, people want to talk to, and so that's always something that has impressed me, knowing how much it takes out of her, just how well she does at that. And so yeah, I really appreciate you agreeing to go, agreeing to make the effort and go along to this opportunity, which I'm pretty sure they don't allow ranches to sit together. When they come together, they separate them out and put them at separate tables. And so we both will be sitting at a table with 5 or 6 strangers and getting to know them and their operations and have discussions with them throughout the day. And I'm sure we'll collapse into the hotel room every night and just kind of sit there and try to process it. One of the things that I'm hoping to do is, as often as we are mentally capable of, to drag out the recording equipment and record some nightly reactions to the day's work and the day's topics and the day's subjects and the day's discussions, and to kind of just catch those in the moment as we're going through it, and just kind of keep that journal, that audio journal, and then we'll release that as probably episode 173 of the Working Cows podcast. So looking forward to that. This is going to be, I think, kind of a neat opportunity to give a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at Ranching for Profit and about how we as individuals process information. So what are some of the things you're looking forward to from the perspective of the school itself. Do you have any ideas, any thoughts about what the school is and what it's going to be like, or do you feel like it's going to be fresh and new and different, or review, or what do you think?
I do think we probably had a small glimpse of the overall thought of it at the High Plains Ranch practicum. I guess going into it this time, I feel like I'll be looking at it totally different. We're just going into sheep ownership, just coming up on a year of having owned sheep. And I was not thinking of it from a sheep standpoint earlier, and I have no intention of selling my sheep anytime soon. So I think I'll be looking at it differently as far as my sheep operation. Some things I've been mulling over. I think, am I right? 5 sheep to 1 cow per
Something
operation.
like that, depending on the size of the cow, depending on the size of the sheep.
So just even as far as, even though I don't like the bookwork end of it, I know I need to be accountable for my sheep and charging them for their feed and my time and things like that, which I was not considering the first time we went around. I had no clue we would own sheep when I was sitting in the first go round of the practicum. I would have picked the sheep guy's brain a little bit more that was at our table most days. So, yeah, just trying to get the economics of them figured out, because right now they're riding pretty cheaply. They're cleaning up after the cows, but just getting that division of cow and sheep operation, and yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it will all be a huge refresher of what I've forgotten.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think probably no matter how many times you've been through ranching for profit or anything even related to it, I think you're probably always going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose and always have new perspective and new ideas, and I'm kind of looking forward to it from that perspective of after we've had an opportunity to implement some of these things. Back when we were in the High Plains Ranch practicum, I always say my dad is a hero of mine, as far as his ability to start in the 80s from nothing, but we were kind of hamstrung by being on lease land so often and unable to do a lot of those out of the box kind of management practices, because the people that we were leasing from, pretty much it was a full care lease situation. And so when we went through the High Plains Ranch practicum, everything was new, everything was unfamiliar, had never really heard any of that stuff, and so now that we've had a year of implementing quite a few of those practices, at least on the grazing and the water development side, it'll be fun to sit through it and listen to it again with that perspective. And then I also, I think that the economic analysis, the financial analysis part of it, I'm hoping to have some tools to use in that regard and in those decision-making processes. Our 12-year-old is trying to get the beagle quiet.
Beagle wrangling.
Yeah. And our 6-year-old is being the voice for the beagle. So anyways, yeah, I guess I don't know if there's anything else that's been on your mind over the last few months as we've been getting ready to go, and anything else that you've been thinking about, or anything else that you're looking forward to or dreading. You can go ahead and share that.
I guess I would be interested to know more about what people have done to set up in drought plans as well. We are going to have to start making a plan, which is probably too late now. I mean, it's not too late. We haven't signed anything for the summer, but I seriously hadn't considered it as necessary for this year, and more it's looking like it may be necessary. So learning from other folks' adventures in drought management and learning from mistakes, successes. We are in a very unique position where we wouldn't have to take anything in, but it would sure be nice to. But yeah, if we don't get any snow or rain, we're going to be hurting units.
Yeah. We dried off in August. Pretty dry through the whole summer. We had some timely rains in June and July, but dried off through August and have stayed very dry. Had a very open winter. We had one good snow, maybe 6 or 8 inches. I don't even remember now, of heavy wet snow in October, but since then, very, very little, and really the ground hasn't hardly frozen either. So we're losing water out of those dams both directions. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was mentioning that, and I'm sure the same is true here. The ground never froze, so the water runs out the bottom and evaporates out the top because we've had some above 40-degree days and everything. So, yeah, definitely. So you bring up a good point. The value of these kind of ventures. Part of the value of these kind of ventures is networking and the opportunity to pick other people's brains around the table and around the lunch table, and so yeah, that's another good opportunity and another thing that we hopefully can take advantage of. We're gonna do something about the eagle here real quick. Professionals we are, yeah. Anyways. Yeah, so I guess we were just mentioned the idea of networking. I guess what are some of the so the easiest thing for you would have been to say no, I don't want to go. What drives you to go? I mean, what drives you to step outside your box and go? What do you see as the value of that?
I think we both have a vision for our property and wanting to make it better. There again, we're kind of in a unique situation where we can make some fairly large mistakes and still be doing good things for a lot of our property because of the shape it is in. It's in kind of rough shape. That drives me. Yeah, I just like knowing we're on the same page and moving forward. Hopefully putting our land in a position where if our children, any of them, would want to pursue ranching, that we could help them learn how to do it well and not even necessarily take this chunk of ground over, but have the tools to manage other people's land and be a success is major for me. Whether they choose to or not, I would like them to be able to know the tools to get that done. I could see one or two of them potentially wanting to go into agriculture of some sort or fashion.
Do you envision any radical changes in our business model? So right now, most of our income is from custom grazing. Do you see us kind of retaining ownership or growing the herds that we have right now and going away from custom grazing? Do you think that we will? Do you think that we'll continue the custom grazing and increase our emphasis on sheep? Do you think we'll? Yeah. What do you think? I
remember thinking at the practicum when they talked about you either own the land or you own the livestock, but most often if you're making a profit, you don't own both. I was baffled. I thought I wanted to own cows and always have cows, and that was the only way to do it. But I could definitely see the custom grazing continuing. I think there's always going to be somebody looking for pasture, and just the freedoms we have of the control, since it is our own property as far as moving and the impact that we leave behind being what we would like it to be. No one else really having a say over that part of it. I would really love to have more sheep, but I don't know. We ended up selling a few of our cows off this past fall, and that was a pretty sad thing. So I don't know. I don't know if we could ever not have cows around, they could definitely be someone else's, though.
Yeah. No, and I've wondered many times about having the only animals we own be sheep and then bringing in somebody else's outside cattle. The biggest challenge for me in that regard is figuring out a effective way from a labor perspective to graze sheep in a way that they don't have access to the whole place all at once. And net fencing is miraculous. I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff, but it is a fairly high labor. And I guess the labor return would be better if we had more sheep in the same number of panels of electric net fencing. If we were moving 100 sheep with every move of the net fencing rather than 25, it might be a little bit more easy to take. But this year we were moving every other day or so, 25 sheep in the net fencing panels, and that was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of, if you went by yourself, it was 45 minutes to an hour. If you had help, which the kids were able to help with that, it was 15 minutes. So, but then you got to figure 2 people's time and what that's worth. But I really do like sheep, and I like the opportunity to have the kids involved with the sheep. And so I think that's one thing I'm looking forward to learn. Hopefully we'll end up at a table with some sheep people, or find some sheep people that we can take out to supper and talk to them about how they do it, what they do, why they do it, and some of those things.
Right. Right now they're being held in with a couple panels of net fencing and then 3 hot wires on the other side. We are kind of known for doing things backwards, but we did buy sheep before we were fenced for sheep. We still are not fenced for sheep on our perimeter. That would be a major undertaking, but we've talked about refencing one direction of fence each year to make it sheep proof, as far as barbed wire, and then a couple hot wires maybe around the whole perimeter. But it was very labor intensive. Not something I think we could probably continue to do without family vacations in the fall or something, because that tied up our summer. It was our working season. So as it were now, when other people are busy feeding and maybe even starting to calve in the next couple months, this is kind of our lazy time, if you will. So it was fun. It was good exercise. It was hot a few days, and of course, water. I guess I would like to see what other people are doing for water infrastructure. That's always going to be the challenge, even on our smaller piece of property, is water. So,
yep,
what people are doing.
Yep, and there's probably more we could talk about, but the Beagle has returned, and we will be coming back to you next week with another episode of the Working Cows podcast, talking about what our experience at Ranching for Profit was like, and trying to get that recorded and get that out to you guys and give you some opportunity. And I guess the last thing I will say is that if you can help it, my recommendation, if you're not married, is to marry your best friend. I did that, and we've been best friends since before we were married, and I really think that's a key to it, and I really highly recommend, if you aren't married, to commit to being married to your best friend, and if you are married, pursue that spouse as your best friend. Thank you for agreeing to come with me. Thank you for agreeing to record some of these thoughts with me, and I love you, and thank you for being my best friend.
I love you, and I will be glad if that live audience is my biggest fans forever, I guess.
Yep, very good. Well, we'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.